Welcome again to The Man Who Woke Up the Buddha. This is Season 2, Episode 14, Sid is at a Loss for Words. Previously, Leila challenged Sid on his insistence that true acceptance means never saying that anyone or anything represents a higher good than anyone or anything else. Meanwhile, Di cooked dinner, Marcus set the table, and Zoe filled in the blanks, until Leila, who's a social worker, told a story about a drug deal that went bad and a little kid who'd been abused by her parents. At the end of the episode, they all realized that Zoe, Sid's 12-year-old granddaughter, had been standing in the door listening the entire time. "I don't think you should do that to kids," Leila went on. "I don't care how accepting and compassionate you are, Mr. Buddha." Leila didn't want to fight him. She adored him as much as anyone, but he'd gone too far. "Slippery slope, Leila. Where do you draw the line?" Sid said. "Oh, I don't think it's so slippery," she came back at him. "Playing the Buddha card is bad enough. Don't go all Jesus-forgiving trespasses on me, Sid. I can almost accept Bobby's idiotic drug deal, even the knifing maybe, but I don't accept people doing that to little kids." Zoe was still in the doorway, trying not to cry. Sid began looking into the far distance, his face impassive and yet viciously alive, vibrating without moving like a hummingbird's wings. Leila kept looking into those faraway eyes, biting her lip, vacillating between anger and sorrow. Marcus looked down at his hands, thinking of different things to say, before realizing there was nothing to say. Di carefully picked up a piece of asparagus from the boiling pan, and, as she blew on it, turned, looked at the two combatants, smiled, shook her head, and sighed in one smooth motion. "Leila, I hear you," Sid said. "You're just doing your job. Don't beat me up for making it up as I go along. It's not easy being the Buddha, especially in this day and age." No fooling, the Buddha thought, especially when I'm you. He smiled kindly, to himself as much as to Sid. Leila bit her lip and let a tear form in each eye. Good, bad, higher good, lower bad, lower bad, Sid said. "People have been doing it that way for a zillion years." He was in a runaway car without a steering wheel. "In my world, Sid," Leila said evenly, "there are a whole lot of higher goods and way too many bads." Acceptance and right action. Yes, we do our best, the Buddha thought. "Yes, Leila," Sid nodded. "Acceptance and right action, we do our best." The truths are indeed noble, the Buddha thought. The realizations are indeed right. But every drop in the river is different, and the water never stops flowing. Sid was at a loss for words. He could hear them, but not say them. Leila nodded. "Truce," she thought without saying it. "Truce," Sid said. Zoe was still in the doorway watching, trying to put what she'd seen into words that she could understand. "Zoe," Di asked to get her attention, "are you staying for dinner?" "No, Grandma," Zoe said slowly. She knew it was a moment, a feeling, that she'd remember for a long time. "Courtney's picking me up, and we're going out for pizza. Junior's coming too," she added, as if reassuring them, or herself, that she'd have plenty of support, while she tried to explain to herself how Leila's story of the little kid, and her argument with Sid, made her feel. "Come here, Zoe," Di said, gesturing that she join her in the far corner of the room, where she whispered to her and gave her a hug. Zoe nodded and almost smiled. No one said anything until she'd gone back into the living room, picked up her books, and came out. She gave Marcus and Leila little hugs with her head down. She tried to look up at Sid. "Bye, Grandpa." He was about to say something, but managed just to nod and say thanks, really quietly, and hugged her gently as if she were fragile. She hugged him back the same way, realizing in some inchoate way that he was as fragile as she was, which made her feel like a little girl and a grown woman at the same time. "Bye, everyone," she said simply, and waved as she walked out the door. It felt like they'd been holding their breath. Even the Buddha had stayed very still. What did you say to her? Sid asked quietly. Grandma-granddaughter conversation is privileged, Di said firmly, but at the moment, dinner is the highest good. After everyone's second helping of Di's brownies with ice cream, Leila and Marcus got ready to go. By then, Sid felt like an old Eskimo on an ice floe, drifting slowly away from his people. He stood up and this time gave Marcus the first hug. "You're good to come," he said, and then walked around him to Leila. She was willing to cut him a little slack, but not too much. She was still thinking of Bobby's little girl she'd pulled out of hell a month ago. So was he. So is the Buddha. "You're a doll," he said, which is what he usually said. Getting no reaction, he added, "You know I'd do whatever I could." Leila tilted her head more in curiosity than agreement. "And Samantha, she's good?" Sid asked. He loved their daughter. Leila nodded. "She wants to come home and see you. We told her to wait." "Tell her I said that knowing I'll see her is well worth living for." Leila nodded and reached up to stroke his face with her palm. "Bye, Sid. It's good we came." She let it hang there for him to parse the multiple meanings, as would she before saying, "We'll be back soon." He turned away before them and went toward the doorway into the living room where he paused for a long moment. Marcus and Leila looked at him with syncopating emotions from sadness to anger to joy. Even Di was uncommonly quiet. Sid turned back with tears in his eyes, looking toward but not at them. "Well," he said to someone, "I guess I've got to learn to walk before I can crawl." "Now you're talking," the Buddha thought. Marcus almost moaned in a kind of pain he'd managed not to feel until then. Leila held her breath. Sid shuffled away towards the stairs with a little wave, resigned to the fact that he was in a body, albeit a temporary one. Leila and Marcus went over to Di and they hugged as three. Di shook her head and said something they couldn't hear, before telling them to call when they got home. She is the wisest of them all, the Buddha thought. Marcus and Leila walked to the car hand in hand. "See what it's like to be with him?" Marcus asked. Yep. She was a little teary. Just didn't know cancer could metastasize into enlightenment. Marcus had been working on that line for a while. She hardly seemed to hear it. "When you told me what he was saying, I figured you were probably reading a lot into it that wasn't there," she said. "But you agree his ideas are—" "Yeah, I know, acceptance. Who doesn't believe in acceptance? He's right. But the way he says it feels like, I don't know. It feels almost disrespectful. He doesn't know what it feels like to be those kids. He's in no position to accept or not accept." They kept walking until she stopped next to a huge oak tree that was bursting up through the sidewalk. It had an oversized burl at chest height. She looked at it closely. "What makes these?" she asked, adding, "Well, trauma, no doubt." "Yeah, some kind of injury or stress. We should ask Zoe," Marcus said with a hint of a laugh. Leila took her phone out of her bag and began framing the picture. "Flash, you think?" "Better try it both ways," he answered. She did. The flash on the burl made it a totemic moment, eerily cinematic. After looking down to see what she'd caught, she nodded and put it in her bag and said, "You know what it really is? It's that he doesn't give you any place to stand before he's on to something else, or nothing else. You can't say he's constructing or deconstructing anything. You can't say anyone's more or less spiritual. It's not that anything you're doing is right or wrong. It's just that if you listen to him, you find yourself questioning things that are so obvious." Marcus put his arm around her, and when they got to the car, he turned her toward him and gave her a long hug, the kind where you can feel your cheeks sliding on each other's. Thanks for listening. By the way, some people wonder why they should pay for their subscription. Well, you get a paperback of Season 1 and a Sid Ohm cap. Sid has more money to give LJ and his other friends at the park. And the Buddha can afford to replace his 2,500-year-old robe. In any event, thanks for listening to The Man Who Woke Up the Buddha. If it's easier for you, all these podcasts are available on Apple Podcasts.